So let us discuss Bohr atom model. Bohr's atomic model. So we all know that Bohr has three postulates. So let us discuss postulate number 1. Postulate number 1. So according to this postulate, every atom consists of centrally located area which is called as a nucleus. So it has a centrally located area which is called as nucleus, and all the positive charges are deposited onto the nucleus. All the protons and neutrons, they are inside the nucleus, and negatively charged electrons, they are revolving around the nucleus in a circular orbit. Negatively charged electrons, they are revolving around the nucleus in a circular orbit. Let us consider only the one orbit. Okay, now the electrons are negatively charged particle. So this is electron, this is proton. If it is a hydrogen atom, then this is proton, this is electron, and since electron is revolving into the circular orbit, there should be the centripetal force, and the direction of this centripetal force will be towards the nucleus. Okay, so we can set up some sort of equations. We know that if there is a circular motion, then there should be the centripetal force, and centripetal force will be given by m into v square divided by r. Okay, and if this circular motion is possible, it means that there should be some. So if the electron is moving in a circular orbit, okay, so there should be some centripetal force, and this centripetal force will be given by m into v square divided by r, where m is the mass of electron, v is the linear velocity of the electron, and r is the radius with which the electron is revolving. Now who is providing this centripetal force? We know that this nucleus is having positive charge, electron is having negative charge, so there should be the force of attraction, that is electrostatic force of attraction between these two, and therefore this centripetal force will be provided by this electrostatic force of attraction. So what is that attractive force? E square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 into r square, right? So what we would get, this r gets cancelled, and we get m into v square, it is equal to E square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 times r, and this can be written as, let us multiply it by 1 by 2. So half mv square, it is equal to E square divided by 2 into 4, that is 8 pi epsilon 0 times r. Okay, half mv square, what is this? This is nothing but kinetic energy. Kinetic energy of the electron in this circular motion. So it will be equal to E square divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 times r. So this is one of the formula which we obtained. Okay, another, what we can expect, once we obtain the kinetic energy, we also need the potential energy. Okay, so how to obtain the potential energy? We know that general formula for the potential energy is, potential energy is nothing but negative of the work done. Okay, work done onto the charged particle. And what is work done? Work done is nothing but force into displacement. So I will consider dr is the linear displacement. And what is force? Force, just we have written, that is minus E square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 times r square into dr. In place of dr, what we can use? We can also use r, because here we have used r square. Okay, so r gets cancelled. So minus E square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 times r. So this is potential energy. So we have obtained expression for kinetic energy, expression for potential energy. We can obtain expression for total energy, and total energy is suppose given by E, represented by suppose a letter E. So E will be equal to sum of kinetic energy plus potential energy. So if we put these two values, finally we would get minus E square divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 times r. So now our target is to find out the value of r. Okay, so this is the first postulate, that is electron revolves around the nucleus in a circular orbit. So once we understood this particular first postulate, we obtained these many equations. Now the second postulate is again very important, because according to the Rutherford, in Rutherford atomic model, we have just seen that if the electron is revolving around the nucleus, it means that this is the accelerated motion, and accelerated charged particle should emit the radiation. So in order to solve this particular difficulty, okay, in order to solve this particular difficulty, Bohr has introduced another postulate, and that postulate, according to that postulate, so we have to see postulate number 2. So what is the statement of this postulate? According to this postulate, every electron revolve around only those orbits. Electron can revolve only on those orbits for which angular momentum of the electron. What is angular momentum? It is m into v into r. Angular momentum of the electron should be equal to integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. And this integral multiplication will be represented by another letter which is denoted by a letter n, small n, and here small n is called as principal quantum number. So Bohr has firstly introduced this particular new letter n, new symbol n, which is called as a principal quantum number. So only those orbits, means electron cannot revolve in any orbit. Okay, if electron will revolve in any kind of orbit, that motion would be the accelerated motion and it has to emit the electromagnetic radiation. But Bohr had denied that particular argument. Okay, he put another argument that only those orbits are possible for which the angular momentum of an electron in that particular orbit should be equal to n into h upon 2 pi, or integral multiple of h upon 2 pi, where n is called as the principal quantum number and it can take the value 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, so if n is equal to 1, then this angular momentum will be equal to h upon 2 pi, 1 into h upon 2 pi. This is called as first orbit. This is the first orbit of the electron in which the electron is rotating, revolving. Okay, if n is equal to 2, then m into v into r is equal to 2 into h upon 2 pi. This is second orbit. This is the second orbit, and if n equal to 3, then m into v into r is equal to 3 into h upon 2 pi, and this is third orbit. This is third orbit. Okay, so in this way we can get large number of orbits, and for every orbit the angular momentum should be integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. Those orbits are only possible. So if you make use of these particular equations, then what we can do, let us square this particular equation. Therefore m square v square r square, it is equal to n square h square divided by 4 pi square. Okay, so we have this equation from the first postulate, m into v square equal to e square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 times r. So let us put the value. So we need m into v square, it is equal to n square h square divided by 4 pi square, 1 m and 1 r, no, r square. Okay, so instead of m into v square, now instead of m into v square we can put this value. Therefore e square divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 times r is equal to, again same quantity, n square h square divided by 4 pi square m into r square. So this r gets cancelled, this 4 pi will get cancelled. Finally we get expression for small r. We get expression for small r. R is equal to, see, I have taken this r into the left hand side. So let us rearrange the things. N square h square we shall write first, n square h square divided by pi, 1 pi is left there. Okay, 1 pi has been cancelled, 1 pi is left, m, okay, and here e square on the left hand side, e square is there, so that has to be brought into the denominator on the right hand side. Sorry, e square, this is e square, and epsilon 0 has to be taken there. So here epsilon 0. Okay, so what I would do, this is epsilon 0 and here n square. Okay, so if you can see, epsilon 0 is the permittivity of the free space, then h is the Planck constant, pi m is the mass of electron, and E is the electronic charge. If you put all these values into this particular equation and rewrite this equation, then we would get R equal to 0.53 times n square. 0.53 times n square. This is in angstrom. This is in the angstrom. So if you put n equal to 1, if you put n equal to 1, that is for the first orbit, we will get radius of the first orbit, R1 is equal to 0.53 angstrom. So Bohr has accurately calculated the radius of first orbit in the hydrogen atom, first orbit in which the electron is revolving in the hydrogen atom, and that is given by R1 equal to 0.53 angstrom. Sometimes this radius is also denoted by a letter A0, and A0 is equal to 0.53 angstrom. This is called Bohr radius. This is called Bohr radius. Okay, and again R is directly proportional to the n square. So if n is equal to 2, if n is equal to 2, then we will get R2, that will be equal to 0.53 into 2 square, that is 4. If n is equal to 3, then R3 equal to 0.53 times 9. So you see that as you increase the quantum number, the radius also gets increased. Okay, so radius also gets increased. Electron will be far and far away from the nucleus. So this is the expression for radius. Now if we put this particular expression for radius into the equation of energy here, then what we will get? We will get E will be equal to minus E square divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 times R, and R is this thing, epsilon 0 again. So epsilon 0 square, here it will be h square. Okay, again n square, and pi m e square, pi m e square, and here e square. So here it will be pi m e raised to power 4. So this is the expression for total energy of an electron inside the atom, hydrogen atom. Okay, so since it depends on the quantum number n, I will represent this energy as En. So En will be equal to this thing. All these entities are constant. Okay, if you put the values, respective values of all these quantities, then you will obtain En will be equal to minus 13.6 electron volt divided by n square. This is in the electron volt. So En will be equal to minus 13.6 divided by n square into electron, that is in the electron volt. If n equal to 1, that is for the first orbit, En will be equal to minus 13.6 electron volt. Okay, so for the first orbit, what is the energy of the electron? The energy of the electron is minus 13.6 electron volt. What is the significance of negative sign here? This energy is represented with a negative sign. It means that if you want to remove this particular electron from the hydrogen atom from the first orbit, then you have to supply this much of energy. Only this much of energy, when it will be supplied to the electron, then only that electron will be liberated or will be kept away from the atom. Okay, and that would of the atom. So this is the energy of the electron in the first orbit. If you put n equal to 2, then you will get the energy of the electron for the second orbit. Okay, and that is equal to minus 3.4 electron volt. And if you put n equal to 3, then you will get the energy of the electron in the third orbit, that is minus 1.5 electron volt. Okay, so in this way you will get the energy of the electron in the different orbits. Okay, and now we have seen that there are different radius possible, there are different energies of the electrons possible. So Bohr has visualized the picture of the atom as follows. Okay, suppose that every atom has a centrally located charge which is called as a nucleus. So it is positively charged, right? So first orbit, suppose that this is the first orbit of the electron, So its radius will be denoted by r0 or a0, right, r0, and we know that it is equal to 0.53 angstrom, 0.53 angstrom, and its energy will be equal to minus 13.6 electron volt. When the electron will be in the second orbit, then its radius would be 4 times this r0. Okay, it would be 4 times this r0, and its energy will be equal to minus 3.4 electron volt. When it is in the third orbit, then its radius will be 9 times r0, and its energy would be minus 1.5 electron volt. Okay, so you can represent the atom in this particular picture. The energy levels can also be shown in this way. Suppose that this is one energy level for the electron in the quantum number 1. So suppose that this is n equal to 1 level, so it will have energy E1, it is equal to minus 13.6 electron volt. N equal to 2, it will be having energy E2 equal to minus 3.4 electron volt, and n equal to 3, it will be having energy E3 equal to minus 1.5 electron volt. So in this way you can represent various energy levels, right? Okay. So we have considered these two postulates and we have obtained very precious information, right? But again third postulate is remaining. What is third postulate? Because till now Bohr has not given the answer of the origin of spectral lines, how these different spectral lines are arising. So in order to explain that, Bohr has given third postulate, and according to the third postulate, what Bohr has said, that whenever electron revolves in a particular orbit, okay, it does not emit any kind of radiation. Whatever allowed orbits are there, if the electron is revolving in an allowed orbit, it will not emit any kind of radiation, or it will not emit any kind of electromagnetic waves. Such orbits are called as a stationary orbit, because its energy will remain stationary there. Okay, and if the electron jumps from higher energy level to the lower energy level, or when the electron jumps from outer energy level to the inner energy level, then only the difference in the energy level will be emitted in the form of electromagnetic waves. Okay, difference in the energy will be emitted in the form of electromagnetic waves. So suppose that just now we have seen that this is a nucleus, this is first energy level, this is second energy level. So if the electron jumps from second energy level to the first energy level, then only the difference of these two energy levels will be emitted in the form of photons. Now we know that these are nothing but the photons in the form of electromagnetic waves, and this electromagnetic wave will be having the energy given by h into nu, where nu is the frequency of that wave. Okay. So this emitted photon will be equal to the difference in the energy level. So suppose that outer energy level, suppose that these are the two energy levels, right? The outer energy level is denoted by the quantum number Ni, and the lower energy level is denoted by the quantum number Nf, suppose, right? So Ni will be having some kind of energy. Let us consider that it is denoted by Ei, and final orbit or the lower energy level will be having the energy which is denoted by Ef. Okay. Now whenever electron jumps from this initial level to the final level, difference in the energy level is denoted by Ei minus Ef, and this difference of energy level will be emitted in the form of electromagnetic radiation having energy h into nu, where h is the Planck constant and nu is the frequency of the emitted radiation. Okay, so this is very important formula which is given by the postulate number 3. Now we have just seen the expression for the energy. En is equal to minus pi m e raised to power 4 8 pi epsilon 0 square h square into 1 upon n square. So for the initial orbit, what will be the energy? Ei will be equal to minus pi m e raised to power 4 divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 h square into 1 by n square. Since this is I, we have to represent it as 8 by Ni. Similarly for final orbit, EF is equal to minus pi me to the power 4 8 pi epsilon 0 h square 1 upon nf square. Okay. Now what will be EI minus EF? EI minus EF, EI minus EF will be equal to, see, let us rearrange the things, EI minus EF, so minus minus will be plus, so pi me to the power 4 divided by 8 pi epsilon 0 h square in the bracket 1 upon nf square minus ni square, 1 upon nf square minus ni square, right. So this is the final formula, or we know that this EI minus EF is nothing but h nu. So h nu will be equal to this thing. Now nf is the final orbit and ni is the initial orbit. Okay. Now let us consider that if you use this particular equation, you will get different wavelengths emitted by the hydrogen atom. Now let us consider case number first. Case number first, suppose that nf is equal to 1. Final orbit is suppose equal to 1, and ni in that case would be equal to sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. Means the electron can jump from second orbit to the first orbit, electron can jump from third orbit to the first orbit, electron can jump from fourth orbit to the first orbit, fifth orbit to the first orbit. Means from the various higher energy levels, if the electron is making jump to the first orbit, then whatever electromagnetic radiations we will get, that electromagnetic radiation, that spectrum will be called as Lyman series. Lyman series. Okay, so this is the first series which we can get, and this particular series, why we do not observe normally, because this particular series is in ultraviolet region, is in ultraviolet region. So if nf is equal to 1 and ni is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., we will get the Lyman series. Now if nf is equal to 2 and ni is equal to 3, 4, 5, etc., what do we expect? We will get the Balmer series. We will get the Balmer series. We will get the Balmer series, and this particular series we normally observe because it is in the visible range or visible region. Okay, it means that if the electron is making jump from third orbit, fourth orbit, fifth orbit to the second orbit, then only we will be getting Balmer series spectrum. Okay, Balmer spectrum. Now if nf is equal to 3 and ni is equal to 4, 5, 6, etc., etc., we will get the Paschen series. Okay, we will get different kinds of series depending on the different values of n. Depending on different values of n. So Paschen series for nf equal to 3, we will get the bracket series if nf is equal to 4. Then we will get Ferns series if nf is equal to 5, and so on. So many series can be obtained. Humphrey series is there. Okay, so different kinds of series can be obtained. So see what a miraculous job has been performed by the Bohr. Okay, he has given 3 postulates, and all the 3 postulates consist of so many precious information. We get the information about the stability of the atom. Even if the electron is revolving in the circular orbit, then only it is not radiating. Such orbits are called as a stationary orbit, right? So an electron will not be emitting any kind of radiation there, so its energy will not decrease, and electron should not collide onto the nucleus. So that difficulty in the Rutherford atomic model was completely removed, right? Second, he has given the another type of orbit. Okay, he has obtained another type of orbit which are called as a stationary orbit, and he just not given the name for name as a stationary orbit. He has obtained the formula for that stationary orbit also. So only those orbits will be called as a stationary orbits for which the angular momentum will be equal to integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. Okay, and thirdly, how the different spectral lines are arising. So in order to explain that, he has given this particular postulate number 3, and according to this postulate, whenever the electron jumps from higher energy level to the lower energy level, it gives out electromagnetic radiation. And how that electromagnetic radiations are related, we can obtain that relationship with the help of this particular formula, and we can explain different series with the help of Bohr atomic model. Now if you see these postulates and if you see the job performed by that particular Bohr, you can understand that this is very successful atomic model. But does this really explain hydrogen atom spectrum? Okay, we know that hydrogen atom spectrum consists of 4 lines: H alpha, H beta, H gamma, etc., right? And in order to explain that hydrogen spectrum only, the complete methodology we are studying, right? So whether this particular explanation can solve the mystery of the hydrogen atom spectrum. So this is the curious question to you. I hope that until the next lecture you would think about that, and let us think that whether this particular hypothesis can explain the hydrogen atom spectrum, whether this particular model is very successful or not. Okay.